So in this video, we will implement caching where we can store some of the values that we want to store. For example, the user email, user ID and token and all that. So basically over here, you can see that it's there. Now, if I close the app and restart it, you will see that it's still there. And when I open this, you basically get a different screen than the login. While when the user is not logged in, they should be getting a sign in screen or sign up screen. So basically, this is something we'll be implementing through data store, which is basically a component which is provided by KMM, and we can use it both for Android and iOS. Hello and welcome back to yet another video of our Compose Multiplatform series. So in this video, we are going to implement a data store, which will basically help us caching the tokens and the information that we want to store. Let's just get started. And the first thing basically we'll be doing to implement data store is to add a couple of dependencies. So let me just add that. So for data store, the first thing that we need is basically a version. Let me just add a comment over here, call it data store over here like this. And then over here, we are gonna use data store as well. And we'll add these two things, the two dependencies. Okay. So let's just add these and then we'll sync it. Once the sync is done, the next thing would be to go to the build.gradle file, and in the common main over here, like let's add these dependencies. So we'll say implementation libs dot androidx dot data store dot core, and this is going to be preferences dot core. Okay, so these are the two dependencies that we'll add, and once we add that, we'll just sync it. Okay, so once the sync is done, now this means that the basic structure is done, and we'll basically implement something similar like we did um for database as well, like having some sort of creation methods from the each platform specific, and then along with that we also implemented some common structure for that as well. So we'll be doing the same similar approach over here for creation of the data store. And for that, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a new package over here, and let's call that package cache. So inside this cache, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a Kotlin class, and I'm going to say um, data store factory. Let's call that. Okay, it's going to be a simple file. And over here, we have a function that says basic create data store, and it should be receiving a producer path, which is important for this case, and it's gonna return a data store with preferences. Okay, okay, and now over here we are gonna say return preference data store factory dot create with path. Okay, and you're gonna say produce file is equals to, come on, let's use this, say produce file is equals to path, and let's just import that. Okay, yeah, I think that's that. So basically the first implementation is done, and now along with that you can also say basically create that data store file name for yourself. So yeah, that's basically done. Now, like we did similar for this, like for database, we are gonna do some similar thing for caching as well. So let's just create a file and call that get, or let's call it, or yes, you can think get data store path. Now here we'll say function create data store context. It's going to be context, and it should be returning a data store of preferences. Okay, and it should be something as create data store. This is basically the same produce file that we basically like created, and then over here it should be produce file context dot file directory dot resolve, and over here we'll pass the file name that we created and absolute path. So basically this will be something for Android, and we are gonna do similar for iOS as well. So we have a database builder over here. I'm gonna say get data store builder, And over here it is going to be, rather than get database builder, what I'm going to say create data store, and it is going to be data store of preferences, again similar. And now over here what we are going to do is that I'm going to say create data store, get documents path, and then we'll pass the name. You can always use the name we created. Then I'm going to say data store, what's the name file, it should be data store file name. So you can use the same file name over here as well, like this. Import that, and create data store should also be imported. So you have to do something like this, and then for the documents path you can use the same URL file directory. For documents, you basically we are gonna request a document directory, and inside that will basically create something like this. So now once that is done, this means now we can create the data store, but we definitely need some sort of mechanism where basically we can use this. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is that inside the same caching thing over here in the common main section, I'm gonna create a Kotlin file, sorry, not Kotlin class, and let's call that data store repository, or you can say data store manager. Okay, something like this. Okay, so this is going to be a simple a class, and it should be having data store as a data store preferences as a private variable inside that private parameter. So I'm going to say private wall data store like this. Okay, now this functionality will help me, this class will basically help me create all those functionality from basically of storing the variables and retrieving on all that. So I'm going to create a companion object. I'm going to say private const wall token key, like this. This is for storing the token. Then we will be using email key for email. We might need a refresh key for refresh. Then we might have a user ID for that. So these are, I think, the keys that we'll need. And along with that, we can basically implement some sort of mechanism for storing it and retrieving those values. So I'm going to say suspend function store store token, and this is basically how you can do that. I believe we can also make something is that string preference key and pass that as this. I think this will be much more easier way to do it. Okay, and now we don't need that. Instead, we can just use that. So what we do is basically we update the store for token, and then you can create another suspend function for store email. We're gonna do the same. You can say store suspend function, store refresh token, and suspend function store user ID. Okay, now basically like we are doing pretty much similar thing. The only difference is the key. So I can create a function, let's say suspend function store string, and then we will be using a key and value for that. And instead of like having all these things, what you'll do is that will basically be passing something like this, which will be much more easier. Okay, so now that's something we did, and we are going to do the same thing for this one. Store string, and then use the refresh key along with the refresh token. Then we will be using again store string for email, and lastly for storing token as well. Okay, that's one thing. The next thing would be to fetch a function, or like fetch a value for that. And then for that we are gonna say function get string. Okay. Yeah. So what we are doing is that we basically take fetching the map, and from the map we are fetching the key, and whatever the first value we find for that, we basically return that. So that is basically what we are gonna do for store, like fetching the keys. And now we are going to create the functionality. For example, function get token, that basically return a token, get email, get refresh token, and then get user ID as well. So all these functionalities now done. This database store manager is pretty much what we want. What we'll do is that basically we'll use or like create this uh, in the app so that we can access this, and we can like keep on we can now start storing values into this. And the first thing would be to store these values, and based on that we basically be implementing the rest of the functionality of the app. Okay. So how do we access that? We are gonna, like I said, we are gonna follow the same approach we did for database. Now over here you can see with the app we have this functionality. So I'm gonna create this. I'm gonna say data store repository, or so data store manager in this case. That is something that we will require. And now we go over here into the actual calling from where we are basically calling all this. Now for this, what we are gonna do is that I'm gonna say database. Now the next thing would be data store manager. I'm going to say data store manager will create that, and will pass that main activity into this. And along with that we also need to pass create data store this at main activity. Yeah, I think that's how it should be doing it. Okay, and let's just use the same over here as well. This is for preview, but yeah. Okay, now once you do that, the app should be able to get that store manager, and now this store manager is something that will help us get those values for our app. Now, the first thing that I want to update over here is the email functionality. Right now, we don't have, like, we have a email functionality that do all these things. We don't need that. So I'm gonna say home view model, and this home view model should also have data store manager as this. Okay. Now over here we can create email as something as mutable state flow of string, that's going to be empty initially, and we are gonna get email for that as well. That will basically be fetching this. Okay, I think what we can do is that, yeah, I think that's fine. Okay, now this email, we going to home screen. Over here I'm going to say view model dot user email dot collect lifestyle, collect as state with lifecycle, and then we have this email, and this is going to be database data store manager is going to be data store manager like this. So I'm going to pass that over here, and now we are done. So the email will be now fetch from the data store rather than coming from the previous screen and all that. Okay, now that is done, but we also need to do some more stuff over here. For example, in case if user is already logged in, we don't want the user to be going over here into this screen, right? For example, now I'm going to say if data store manager dot get token get token not equals to null. In that case I don't want the user to like navigate to sign up. Instead, for that I'm gonna say that let's just take the user to a login screen or something like that, right? So yeah, there's just one more thing I think we missed. That is basically to get rid of to call these functionalities, like the data store functionality should be called inside the coroutine. So I'm gonna use the coroutine scope dot launch. Come on. Okay. Now, in case when the user token is not null, we can take the user to either a new screen or maybe show a message saying that you're already logged in or something like that. I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna create one more package. Let's call it profile, and inside that, let's create a Kotlin class. Call it user profile. It's going to be file, and I'm gonna create a simple composable over here. We are not gonna do much fancy things over here. It's just, you know, like this. I'm gonna use column modifier dot fill max size. And inside that, you can use something as text modifier dot padding 16 dot dps, and you can say user profile. Then we are gonna create a simple box modifier, right? And there's just one more thing I think we can do is that we can add a weight. Okay, we don't need that. Then we are gonna create another text that is going to be user email is going to be something like this. Let's pass data store manager into this as well, and use wall email is equals to remember mutable. It's going to be mutable state of string, right? And we are going to say launched effect true data store, sorry, email dot value is equals to get email. So this will basically fetch that email for us. What else? Yeah, over here you can use that as email dot value and all that. Then we are gonna use the padding as well next. So I think that should be done. This profile screen can be added to the app section over here. I'm gonna say composable, and let's call it profile. Use that data store manager for that, and call that like this. Okay, we also need to pass data store manager into this. Let's call it like this. Okay, now basically this will basically be helping us with this. And now inside this home screen, we know what we need to do, that we're gonna say navigate to profile section when the user has already has a token. And now let's basically try to implement this functionality and see if everything is working. So what should happen is that the first user should be able to log in. Second, once user logs in, you should see the email on top, and it should not get cleared when we close the app and get back. And the third one is that now again when I click on basically logging in, it should like um we should be able to, okay, something's wrong. Yeah, yes, okay, so we need to like pass that data store manager as well. Okay, we're gonna import that and import both functionalities. No, come on, it should be like this. Okay, yeah, now we should be good. And now let's just try running the iOS as well again. This time it should work, I'm hopeful. Okay, now you can see that it's working. Let me just click on this and we'll try to log in. Gmail.com, password is going to be 123456. Submit. Yes, it logged in. Okay, Okay, didn't get the email over here, and I think I know why I didn't get the email, but I believe the reason is that we are not storing the token or email anywhere, which we should be doing. So that was a mistake from my end. Now, inside the sign in and sign up view model, we also need to pass the data store as well. So now over here, you're gonna say data store manager as this private wall like this. Now over here inside this section where we are successfully fetching the data, I'm gonna say result dot get or null dot let. Now I'm gonna say store email for this, that is for storing the email, and then we will be using the rest of the things, for example storing user id it dot user id, and then we are going to say data store dot store refresh token, that is also going to be the refresh token for this, and then last one is going to be storing the token, and then that is going to be access token that we will be storing. So we are going to use the same thing in sign in view model and signups view model as well, both in case of success we should be doing that. And let's just use that in this view model as well over here. Okay, now that's done. We definitely need to pass that as a parameter as well. So I'm going to say data store manager as a parameter. We'll pass that. Same goes for sign up screen, data store manager, and we'll pass that data store manager. So that is just, to be able to store those values and then log in. What just happened? Why? Okay, you can see that we need to pass that over here as well and over here. Now let's just rebuild this, retry this time. I'm hopeful we should be able to run the app and the login functionality should work as expected. Okay, now once again I'm gonna go over here and let's just try to log in, submit, and once that is submitted, okay, looks like the first time when we basically uh, update this, the value is not getting updated after the login. We have to like maybe close the app or something. Also the profile screen looks really bad. So yeah, but I think we've understood the basic flows of how we want it. What we can do is perhaps, so I'm gonna use perhaps something like this instead of getting it through email. Let's use something like this. Remember mutable state of simple string. Okay, so I think once we do that, now let me just try to run it on Android so that we can identify if the rest of the stuff is working. Now on Android we have over this, let me go over here into the login section. Now over here let's just try to log in. Furkan at gmail.com, password is 123456, submit. Okay, we were able to log in, and we can also see that now next time when I click on that, you'll see that we are basically uh, showing the email. There is definitely something wrong with the profile screen, but I think the basic understanding is that it should be like this. Okay, let me try once again. This time I think it should work. Okay. Now over here, when I click on that, you can see that I can see my email and the user profile section. We can definitely update the screen, but it's not needed. The idea was to basically be able to store those value and fetch those value when needed. So yeah, that's basically something we did. Now the I think that's pretty much it for how basically we can use data store. So let me just repeat what I did. So first thing that I did is basically we created this create data store that needs a producer path. This producer path is important to basically create that. And along with that, we created this file name so that we are basically consistent among the platforms. You can use like different file name for both your platform as well. Okay. Now the next thing that I did is basically I used the get they created this get create data store section for Android, where basically we can get the file path through the Google context, and we did something similar for iOS as well, where we can create this path through the NS file manager for iOS, which is provided. So basically, this is basically platform specific implementation that we did. We have already done it for the database as well. So we basically kind of use the similar approach for this case as well. And the next thing was just creating this data store manager that basically create this preferences keys. We keep these keys, and then through these keys we basically store or retrieve values from the cache. So yeah, that's basically pretty much for this specific video. In the next video we are going to do something really interesting. We are going to implement the synchronization mechanism, where basically we'll sync all our nodes and all that with the server, and fetch those values and show it on the app as well. So yeah, so basically the next video we will be able to sync the data on both like iOS and Android. So I'll basically add something on Android, and we'll be able to see that on iOS as well, and vice versa. So thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next video. So till then, happy coding. Bye bye. Thank you so much for watching the video. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon so you don't forget any update. If you got any question, you can join my Discord server. The link is in the description. Also, for quick updates and tips, you can follow me on Instagram. Until next time, keep learning, keep developing. Bye.